Hi friends! So in this video we are going to be starting the new book, book 3 of the Kaya series. And this book is entitled Kaya's Hero. So let's do a quick recap of what happened in book 2. So Kaya's village ends up getting raided by an enemy clan looking for horses. And instead of running away with her family out of danger, she ends up running right into danger, trying to get her horse Steps High, and her and Speaking Rain end up getting captured. So they are brought back to the enemy village, and Kaya is put to work, and Speaking Rain watches over a baby because she is blind and she can't do the type of hard work that Kaya can. So in this whole process, Kaya ends up meeting a Salish boy named Two Hawks. He is also being held captive, and they end up hatching a plan to escape. So in book 2, Kaya and Two Hawks escape, leaving Speaking Rain behind because Speaking Rain thinks that she would just be a burden and only slow them down. So Kaya and Two Hawks escape and make their way back through the Buffalo Trail, trying to get back to the Salmon River country where they're from. And the book ends with Kaya meeting up with her father, and Two Hawks ends up going with them. So we are going to read chapter 1 in book 3. I'm going to split it up into 2 parts because it is a very long chapter. So I'll read part 1 now. We'll do a little recap on characters of the book first. So we have Tota, who's Kaya's father, and Itza, Kaya's mother. And of course we have Kaya. She is the main character in this book series, and she is from the Nez Perce tribe, and they are located in the northwest coast of the United States. And then we have her 2 mischievous twin brothers who always get into trouble. We have Wingfeather and Sparrow. And then we have Brown Deer, who is Kaya's biological sister, and Speaking Rain, who is not actually Kaya's sister, but she calls her sister. She's actually a girl from their tribe that just lives with Kaya's family. And then we have Pilaka and Kutsa, who are Itza's parents. So these are Kaya's grandparents. And we have Two Hawks, who is the Salish boy that ends up escaping with Kaya and going back with her. And we have Swan Circling. So she is a strong warrior woman. We were also introduced to her in book 2, just briefly. So chapter 1 is entitled Runaway Horse. So this is part 1. Kaya knelt on a mat in the winter lodge and leaned over the baby named Light on the Water, who lay in her tikas. "Tots me way," Kaya crooned to her. "Are you unhappy this morning?" Light on the Water gazed steadily into Kaya's eyes, but her mouth trembled and turned down as if she were about to cry. Kaya stroked the plump, warm cheek. "Are you wet? Is that what you're telling me?" she asked. She loosened the lacing of the buckskin that wrapped the baby and pulled it away from her feet and legs. The soft cattail fluff that cushioned the baby's bottom was soaked. Kaya pulled it out, dried the baby, and placed fresh fluff underneath her. She squeezed one of the baby's little toes and kissed her forehead. Light on the Water smiled now. "Tots," Kaya said, as she laced up the covering again. "Running alone? Kaya's young aren't." Put her hand on Kaya's shoulder. "Won't you make the lacing just a little tighter?" she asked. "We're going to ride out to gather wood for the fires, and I want my baby very safe." Kaya tightened the lacing, then carried the baby out of the lodge. The day was chilly, and Light on the Water's breath was a small cloud at her lips. When Running Alone had mounted her horse, Kaya handed her the baby. Running Alone slipped the carrying strap of the tekas over her saddle horn and gazed down at her smiling daughter. "She likes your gentle touch," she told Kaya. "She's so easy to care for," Kaya said. "Not like my little brothers. Look, they think I can't see them hiding behind that tree." She pointed at the 2 sets of dark eyes gleaming through the branches of a pine. "Boys, let's go riding," she called to the twins, and they came running, clutching robes of spotted fawn skin around their shoulders. Like all Nimipu children, they loved to be on horseback. Kaya helped one twin climb up behind her older sister, Brown Deer. Then Kaya mounted a chestnut mare and lifted up the other twin. As she waited for the other woman and children to mount, she glanced up toward the north. The foothills of the distant mountains were already white-robed with snow. But here, in Salmon River country, the earth was still brown and bare. Each winter, Kaya's band came to these sheltering hills to make their winter village. They put up their lodges near the banks of the stream and stayed until spring, when it was time to move up to the prairie to dig nourishing roots and bulbs for food. Kaya pulled her elk robe more tightly around her shoulders. Even dressed warmly in fur-lined moccasins, leggings, and her robe, Kaya shivered in the chill of winter. But she remembered the heat of late summer, when enemies from buffalo country made a raid on her people to steal horses. Kaya's horse, Steps High, was stolen with other Nimipu horses, and in the raid Kaya and her sister, Speaking Rain, were captured as slaves and taken far away to the enemy camp. There they met a Salish boy, Two Hawks, who was also held as a slave. Kaya and Two Hawks had managed to escape and cross the mountains back to her people, but Speaking Rain, who was blind, had insisted that she couldn't keep up, that Kaya must leave her behind. Kaya shivered again. She remembered, too, how cold and hungry she and Two Hawks had been as they made their way over the buffalo trail. Now she and the boy were safe again, fed by the meat and warmed by the hides of animals that had given themselves to her people. But Two Hawks had broken his ankle on the trail, and it was slow to heal. He sat alone and homesick all day. Kaya felt as if she had two aches in her chest. One ache was a sharp-edged gratitude that she was with her family again, but the other was a stab of grief that Speaking Rain was still a captive. Kaya had promised that they would be together again, but where was her sister now? If Kaya could find her, how could she save her? And would she ever see her beautiful beloved horse again? Soon Kaya was riding single file with the others. After a time, they came to a bowl-shaped canyon where trees grew thickly. The children ran to play, and the woman fanned out along the creek to gather wood. A girl named Little Fawn and some boys were climbing aspen saplings and swinging to and fro on them. "Magpie, fly into the trees with us," Little Fawn called to Kaya. Magpie! Kaya winced. She tried to ignore that awful nickname the children had given her when they were all switched for her offense. "Not now," she called back. "I'm going to look for more fluff for the baby." She glanced toward Light on the Water and Running Alone, who was tethering her horse to a tree. The baby, lulled by the rocking ride, napped in her tekas on the saddle horn. Taking a twined bag, Kaya started for the stream after the other woman. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed across the canyon. Kaya whirled around. The branch Little Fawn was pulling on had broken off. Little Fawn jumped to the ground. The branch slashed down like a spear and struck the rump of Running Alone's horse. The startled horse reared up in alarm and broke her tether. Wild-eyed, the panicked horse began to bolt down the canyon, the baby in the tekas still hanging on the saddle. "Stop! Stop!" Running Alone cried. She ran after the galloping horse. Kaya ran too. The fleeing horse was already halfway down the canyon and heading for the narrow opening in open country beyond. The tekas bumped against the horse's shoulder with each plunging step. Would the baby be tossed off? Light on the Water could be hurt badly or killed. Near the canyon opening, the young woman named Swan Circling came rushing from the woods. Dropping her robe behind her, she ran swiftly to cut off the horse's escape. She reached the opening of the canyon first and spun around to face the galloping horse, which was thundering straight at her. Taking a stand, she spread her arms wide like an eagle in flight. Would the horse run her down? Swan Circling stood her ground. Right in front of her, the runaway skidded to a halt. The horse snorted and tossed her head, flinging lather onto both Swan Circling and the baby. Here's a picture of Swan Circling stopping the horse. Swan Circling seized the horse's reins. She held the horse firmly in place as Running Alone came rushing to get her baby. Running Alone lifted the Tekas from the saddle horn and clutched it to her chest. "My little one," she cried, kissing her baby's face over and over. "You saved my baby, Swan Circling. Katse Yao Yao, I can never thank you enough." Kaya came running right behind her aunt. She reached to take hold of the reins too and stroked the horse's neck and shoulder to calm her. "I saw you step in front of my horse, but how did you get her to halt?" Running Alone asked. "She could have run right past you or right over you." "I didn't think of that," Swan Circling said. "I wanted her to stop, and she did. Is your baby all right?" Light on the Water was grinning. She thought the bouncing, runaway ride was a game. Swan Circling glanced at Kaya, who was still stroking the horse's lathered neck. "You seem to have a way with horses," she said approvingly. "She's quieting down. Will you lead her back now?" Kaya held the reins of the uneasy horse securely as she and Swan Circling returned to the others. As they walked, she studied Swan Circling's calm face. Kaya had been curious about Swan Circling ever since she'd married Claw Necklace and joined the band. And now Kaya remembered that the woman who appeared to her when she was lost on the buffalo trail had looked like Swan Circling. Had that vision been a sign that they would be friends? Kaya hoped so. She wished she could become as strong as this brave young woman who hadn't even flinched when a horse charged straight at her. And that is where I am going to stop.